Good. Well, it's just afternoon where I am. Hope you're well. Thanks for coming in. Remember, so I'm going to talk about what you need to know today, And I'm also going to talk about it on my radio show, which is a podcast. If you go to proamericareport.com, proamericareport.com, you'll see there all that I'm talking about here and a few interviews that I'm going to refer to. So I am going to talk later today with Michael Volpe, an investigative journalist who writes over at Substack.com. Michael Volpe at Substack.com. Pardon me. You didn't want to check him out. So, but let me remind you, as you're coming in here, do me a favor and share this and like this and send it around to folks so that we can spread the word on the good stuff we're doing. So, what do I mean? Why Kim Kardashian and Kanye West matter? Mostly I did that in the title, see what people will pick up on the title, if more people will look at the title. What I meant by that, though, was the Kim Kardashian led a public discussion of criminal justice reform over the last few years. I think she's studying to be a lawyer on the side. She didn't go to law school. She's just studying. There is a provision in the California bar that allows you to go ahead and take the bar exam if you've done a certain amount of study or work with lawyers or with a lawyer. So anyway, Kim Kardashian, though, has been talking a lot about criminal justice reform and unjust sentencing and all kinds of things. Where this is important is that conservatives and liberals, at least traditionally the names, come together is on the question of abuse of power. And so a few years ago, this book came out, Conviction Machine, Standing Up to Federal Prosecutorial Abuse. Sidney Powell wrote it with a guy named Harvey Silverglate. Harvey Silverglate is a famous, well-known professor. I think he taught at Boston University. I'm not sure of that. He practiced law also. And the book came out in 2020, and it was in the works for a while. Sidney Powell got famous for taking on the General Flynn case, but she'd been working in the trenches for a long time. And my point here is that what has come together is conservatives' concern about the abuse of people with power and traditional liberal concern about abuse of power. Now, the ACLU has become useless because they won't stand up to anything. They just want to be against Trump. So they really have become useless, unfortunately, because some of their efforts were helpful. My point here is Kim Kardashian led that way. Trump did too. We have a problem in the country, and the problem is always twofold. One, where there is abuse of government, abuse by government, big government, we have to fix it, right? And so if the balance of power is in favor of the government to abuse its power, and you could go talk about Lois Lerner at the IRS, you could talk about the FISA abuses, the FISA affidavits that were done poorly, all these kinds of examples. But that's all in our consciousness now. The question is, what do we do about it? The balance of power seems off. What do we do about it? And one of the problems is the media seems to be, it's not even seems to be, the media is in favor, big tech and big media are in favor of more power by big government. And so you have the dynamic right now of, for example, the January 6th. January 6th prisoners are still in jail, still not having trials, still not having speedy trials, and you should be shaking your head saying, boy, it's a long time. It is a long time. We also have a situation where the pandemic opened up the floodgates for the power of government to take on things they never did before and take on a feel that they never did before. So when the balance of power gets off, I started to say there's two things. One is the balance gets off. Government is too strong and too powerful and too intrusive. The second thing is how people feel about it, the confidence they have. Right now, I would venture to guess we're at an all-time low in terms of confidence in government and government agencies. And so what do you do when people don't trust what's happening? How do you handle that? That's the second part of this problem. We're in a really difficult time because we count on confidence, for example, in our republic, in our system. I was looking at an essay that Phyllis Schlafly started to write in 2001, it was 2001, about elections and about election fraud. And she was quoting back and saying that our founding fathers were talking about the fact that the ballot box is the foundation of confidence in our election, in our system of government, because we don't count on the king to have his power. We count on we the people to have the sovereignty. And so after 2016's election, when 75% of Democrats were polled in, say, 2017, and they said they had little confidence in the elections, that's a problem. In 2021, when you polled Republicans and 80% said they had a lack of confidence in elections, it's a problem. You've got to adjust the system if it's off balance or not transparent enough. Then you've got to adjust and gain the perception, the trust of the people, whether it's prosecutorial distrust or abuse of power by grand juries or abuse of power by law enforcement. And then people start to have distrust in the system, the rule of law, or if it's elections where people are saying, hey, I just don't know. I can't tell what happened. We never really got to look at the source code or anything else, or a lot of the things. We have to look at some stuff. And so then you have to address the perception. That what you need to know right now is that the powers that be are racing to try to make it seem like they're trustworthy and not change the system, or leave the system as they've changed it with more power for them. Think about the pandemic. There's not an effort. There doesn't seem to be a lot of effort to roll back some of the rules and some of the spending. One of the things that's happened right now is massive amounts of spending by the pandemic. It's the wrong phrase. I don't mean they promoted the pandemic, but the people that were sort of at the forefront of managing the pandemic have tons of money and therefore tons of influence, and they're influencing the direction of the power and scope of government. They're not pulling it back. They're just not pulling it back. And the same thing with elections. Everybody's saying, oh, we're just going to have an election. It'll work out fine. And they haven't made things more transparent. We haven't made things in this country more transparent to address the second part of it. What you need to know is it's always a twofold problem. Is the system working well? Is the system working well, fairly, whether it's criminal justice, whether it's elections? That's number one. Number two is, how do we, the people, relate to it? Do we have confidence? Can we see what's going on? They go hand in glove, because if you have a transparent system that people can see works, then you have more confidence. If you have a system that is not transparent and secret, and here's my last comment on this. Think about how crazy it is that the leak of Ginny Thomas's text, we talked about it yesterday. Who has access to Ginny Thomas's text? She does. The guy that she texted to, I think it was Mark Meadows, those two, and because of a subpoena, the Select Committee of the U.S. House for investigating January 6th. So who do you think leaked that? Oh, it could be Meadows. It could be Ginny Thomas, but it seems pretty obviously the January 6th committee of the U.S. House. So think about that. Big government just leaked that. Big media, big tech jumped all over it and started an argument and a conversation. How do you fight back up to it? How do you address the problems of a system that is flawed and the lack of confidence in that system? Remember those two things. It's very difficult to do. It's almost impossible to do when the system is leaking. When the system is, you have 51 members of the intelligence community sign a letter saying that Hunter Biden's laptop is Russian disinformation. They either had to know that wasn't true, or they were really dumb and they listened to someone who told them it was true and signed on. Now I get asked to sign a lot of letters, coalition letters and things, and I never sign on without knowing who's offering it. Hey, this is a letter I've drafted. We care about this issue, pro-life or spending or something, and then looking at the letter. So this problem right now, what Kim Kardashian did was draw attention to a system that was flawed, and then also her public profile actually helps give people a chance to be more confident. I think that's actually happening in some sense around criminal justice. If you listen to my interview with Michael Volpe, you'll hear him talk about how more people, it's not right or left, they're digging into these questions and saying, how do we make the system work better? But I'll tell you, on elections and on government in Washington, I'm not sure that they care to either address the system and its problems, think about elections, think about the intelligence community leaking, and they certainly don't seem to be concerned about the confidence of the people. And it's very dangerous for the country. So that's what you need to know. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Do me a favor, share this with others, retweet this, like it, pass it on. Great to talk to you. And go to phyllisschlafly.com and follow us there. There's lots of our great writings that we're doing with our organization.